this is what's happening.
Oh, okay. So I gotta wait for a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped and eternally patient.
It was a good start, though.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You'll get to hear it twice. I hope it was good. All right, now we are on live. Welcome to Judge Classes. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are joining us. My name is Kai. I'm going to be doing the teaching for today. And today we are going to be covering keyword abilities. But before we do, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank Paragon Games for hosting us. Now, we had a little bit of a technical problem, so it may take us a moment or two to get started. But once the slides come up, we can go ahead and get on that. Ready whenever you guys are. There we go. So the evergreen keyword abilities are what I'm covering. You may have heard me last week saying that we were going to be doing copy effects. This was blatant optimism on my part. I cannot talk that fast. But we are going to cover in depth the evergreen abilities from 702.2 Death Touch to 702.20 Vigilance. That's where you'll find them in the rules. They are the keyword abilities that are so prevalent throughout the Magic the Gathering that they show up time and time again throughout different blocks, which is where they get their nickname, the evergreen keyword abilities. Now, I'm going to be going through them very fast, especially the simple ones that really only need about one sentence to explain them. However, that doesn't mean that I am not willing to take questions from anywhere, so please feel free to interrupt me and we will stop and take care of any questions that you have. We'll go ahead and dive right on in. Next slide, please. The first one is really probably the simplest one. It's Defender. Defender is a keyword ability that means that this creature cannot attack. That's it. That's all it means. It is still a creature. It can still be used to do other things, such as crew vehicles, etc. But it is limited in that it just stands there like a wall and defends you. Enchant is our next one. Enchant will always be found with auras, and they tell you what your auras are able to enchant. Oh, we lost it. There we go. Now, this is a very specific ability in that you should probably read it as if the word was in there. For example, enchant player, well, this must enchant a player. That means that you can't put it onto a permanent, you can't put it onto a planeswalker, it does have to be a player. Over here we have Domineer. Domineer is a really old card, so it has actually received some adjustment in the oracles. So instead of what you see up on the card, it reads according to the rules, enchant artifact creature, you control enchanted artifact creature. Because it has two traits, the enchantment must be put onto something that has both traits. If at any time the thing it is enchanting ceases to be a creature or an artifact, then the enchantment will fall off and be put into the graveyard as part of a state-based action. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Equip is our next keyword ability. This is found with equipment. I know they're making it really hard on us. We've got here the Sword of the Animist. You get the the equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you can search your library for a basic land, etc. Equip 2. Now, whenever you see the phrase equip followed by a number, that's shorthand for the ability pay X, attach it to a creature you control at sorcery speed. So in this case, pay 2, attach it to a creature you control at sorcery speed. Do you guys remember what sorcery speed means?
It can only be cast during the main phase 1 or main phase 2.
That's correct. More specifically, it also has to be when the stack is
clear.
Empty. That's right. Very good. Flash is a beauty. It's the keyword ability that allows you to cast a spell at any time that you could cast an instant. And of course, you probably remember what instant speed is. Go ahead.
Can be cast on the stack anytime that you have priority.
Perfect. Anytime that you have priority. And while we've got the Aether Meltdown here, and so close to when we were talking about enchantments, let's go ahead and look at his enchant ability. Enchant creature or vehicle. That little or makes all the difference. And if your card has it, it means that it can be put on a creature and or if we can go back, there we go. Here we have Menace. Menace is an evasion ability. You'll hear me throw that term around a lot tonight. Evasion abilities mean that it's slightly harder to block than your average creature. In this case, it can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. You can, of course, choose not to block the creature at all, but if you do decide that you want to block, you will have to use 2 blockers to do so. Yes?
So this was a little back. When you were talking about equip, it says, do you target a creature when you equip it? Will Shroud prevent a creature from being equipped?
The answer is yes. If you have a creature that is shrouded or hex, well, it doesn't matter if it's hexproof because you're doing it to your creature, but you cannot equip. Is that correct, Jeremiah?
I believe so.
Yeah, we got a confirmation from a second judge. That makes me feel more comfortable. So yes, if your creature is shrouded, you cannot target it for equipping. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Prowess. Prowess is the keyword that talks about the triggered ability that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It's really pretty simple, but there's something that a lot of people keep forgetting. This does not say whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which means that it also includes what?
Planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments.
But not lands. And why not lands?
Lands are not spells.
That's correct. We do not cast lands, we play lands. All right, scry. Everybody's familiar with scry by now, but we usually only scry one, which is looking at the top card of your library, deciding whether or not you want it, and then choosing to put it either on the bottom of your library or leave it on the top. But really, that's not exactly how scry works. Go ahead, next slide. Cards on the top of your library. What happens is you have to put on the bottom in order, and on the top in order. So to get 6 counters uses this ability to remove 6 charge counters from the jar and scry 6. So you have to look at the top 6 cards, and for your turn, you will be spells and on the top in order. Go to the next slide. Trickiness that also describes the regular players, and this is like this. You have to send out. The easiest way to explain it, okay? Let's see. Questions? Especially guys in the audience who are a little more muted. Oh, yeah, great. If you could go back one slide. There we go. I did miss one. All right. Good. I'm glad I caught that before we went on. All right, go right ahead.
How's the audio doing?
Is it doing better now?
Delay.
1,000 years delay.
One blue. Exile target spell with 3 suspend counters on it.
And we all sit here, and you know it's coming, but you just can't do anything about it.
Hey, Kai, sorry.
No.
Pause, you guys. Did they say anything about the audio?
Getting room sound, but it is really low.
Okay, so let's aim the mic towards you.
Ah.
And I need you to, let's have you stand on that side.
Absolutely.
And then have you try to speak to this.
Let's try it. No problem.
Yeah, because you're aiming your voice that way.
And that would
This
be
makes
why.
sense.
Is
And
this better?
And just so you know, like the mic goes like this. So that's why.
Two behind.
So you wanna aim towards this blue light. And then Kai, we're having a little bit of trouble with getting the cards up fast enough. So for this time, the ones that you're talking about, try to just like read them as fast as you can and like explain to the Twitch, because we're gonna try to
do it. Do the best you can to
do
keep
as
up.
many as
I
we
know
can.
I'm rolling through this as fast
then-
as possible.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and keep going.
Okay, so this next thing that we're still talking about, our creature can you can see when I draw these cards, but also built up here on this projector, directly towards you because the card explains what it is. With the class itself, we've got 3 million for a swamp rock. Okay, and the cards we've got green and fuzzy for swamp rock. Here we have such a exotic cards such as the yellow past visitor, 6 resemble some rock, and we travel to with boots and equipped for 2. The creatures are built.
Looks this audio's down again.
You do that very well, by the way.
Thank you.
It's very soothing.
I know, right? We'll have him do that whenever we have audio problems. Okay, Jeremiah, you're on. It'll be an hour and a half of how's the audio doing? Oh, here we go. Sounds better. You're snapping.
We are sorry about the snapping. We will
All right.
work
Okay.
with it.
So moving on, Landwalk. Landwalk is yet another evasion ability, and what it means is that if your opponent has a land of the type mentioned, your creatures cannot be blocked. If it helps to imagine it, they can have their creatures set up all ready to defend, and your creature with Landwalk is just going to go around on the land that you set aside for mana, sneak right past them. The interesting thing is that in the rulebook, this apparently came up enough they actually had to be really explicit about it. If you've got a creature with Island Walk and your opponent has a creature with Island Walk, those 2 Island Walks do not in fact cancel each other out. They are now both effectively unblockable. Alright, go ahead and next. Let's see.
So if we have a planeswalker,
Yes,
how many loyalty counters does it enter with?
it enters with what's indicated on the card.
Even if it has the planeswalk ability?
See, I know this is a subtle thing, but you'll notice that planes here is spelled different from planeswalker. My spell checker had a fit about that, by the way. All right, go ahead, next slide. eventually. And actually go ahead and skip the next two because we've already paused for questions, and we can move on to the next section. There we go, beautiful. Now the next two sets that I'm going to cover are keyword abilities that are very similar, and as a judge it's going to benefit you to understand the difference between them, even if you're already familiar with what the keyword ability does. So first we've got fear versus intimidate, okay? Fear, yet another evasion ability, means that that creature with fear cannot be blocked except by other black creatures or artifact creatures. Card we have up, for those of you who may not have it, is the Abysmal Nocturnus. 2 black and 1. Whenever an opponent discards a card, the Abysmal Nocturnus gets +2/+2 and gains fear until end of turn. If that goes off, he can only be blocked by black creatures or by artifact creatures. Over here we have Intimidate.
It looks like they want you to stand by the door,
Oh.
despite telling you to stand over there.
All right. So we can do this.
Go ahead and speak to the mic.
Speak to the mic while facing. I guess I can do this. For
Maybe
Intimidate.
use a different mic.
Let's
They
see.
wired into a different mic.
Oh,
keep
so
doing
just
it.
move over here? Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so for Intimidate, we have almost the exact same ability. In fact, if you've got a black creature, it becomes the same ability. Because Intimidate says, let's see if I can, there we go. This creature can only be blocked by artifact creatures or creatures that share a color with it. So if it's a black creature, such as the Shadow Alley Denizen, okay, if it has fear, it can only be blocked by other black creatures, artifact creatures, exact same as fear. But Intimidate can show up on any color, any combination of colors, okay? Spectral Rider is the one that I have up for an example for Twitch. It's 2 white. Spectral Rider has Intimidate. Restates what the key ability does, 2/2, okay? It can be tricky to remember the difference. If it helps you at all, the way I remember the difference is we are all afraid of the dark, black creatures, but we can be intimidated by just about anything. Okay, go ahead, next slide. We got a question. If a creature is multiple colors, including the same color as the Intimidate creature, can it block the Intimidate creature? The answer is yes. And that is because it does share a color with it, and that is all you need to be able to block it.
So if the creature is a multicolored creature, it can be blocked by a monocolored creature that shares color too?
That is correct. So, for example, we have the Vila Night Clad. She's black and blue 4, legendary creature. She does have Intimidate. She can be blocked by black creatures, she can be blocked by blue creatures, and she can be blocked by artifact creatures. All right.
So what about Ulamog? Can my Ulamog block her?
Ulamog is colorless. It is not an artifact. And there is a difference, and as judges you need to be very aware of that, especially since we still have Eldrazi for a little bit in Standard. All right, go ahead, next slide. Before we go on, are there any more questions? Okay, beautiful. All right, the next set is Hexproof versus Shroud. Hexproof is the ability that says that it cannot be targeted by spells or abilities that your opponents control. Shroud says that it cannot be targeted by spells or abilities from anybody at all, and that includes you. Oh, we do have a question. Awesome, we can wait.
Sweet.
Yeah, I know. No hurries. This is apparently going to be a big question. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Oh, there we go. When the color of the creature changes due to an effect like distorting lens, can it still block the creature if its previous color was the same as the Intimidate? And the answer is no, because once its color has changed, I don't know this specific effect, but once its color has changed, it is that color, and its previous color no longer applies.
So Distorting Lens is an artifact for 2 mana. Says tap, target permanent becomes the color of your choice until end of turn.
Yep, and as long as it is that other color, it will not be able to block unless it shares a color with the creature with Intimidate. Okay.
What if I attack with my black Intimidate creature, you block with your black Intimidate creature, and then I distorting lens to make my black creature blue.
All right, Jeremiah's question was, if you've got a black intimidate creature attacking, it has been blocked by a black intimidate creature, and then you change the color, what happens? And the answer is, sorry, it's still blocked. Once you have declared that a creature is blocked, it stays blocked. You can't really undo that. Yes, it does remove the colors, but only temporarily, specifically until end of turn. For those of you who aren't able to see the question, it's distorting lens removes all colors it previously had then, huh? Is that accurate, Jeremiah? I don't have the card in front of me. Does it add it to it, or does it replace it?
It replaces it.
All right, so yes, it is. It does replace. It does not add to it. Okay. Moving back to Hexproof and Shroud. Just to repeat myself a little bit, Hexproof doesn't allow your opponents to target it with spells or abilities. Shroud doesn't allow anyone to target it with spells or abilities. Okay? The easiest way to remember that one, a hex is something that a really angry witch would do. You want to protect your creatures from the angry witch, your opponents, and so you'll make that one hexproof. But when you make a creature shroud, it's just wrapped itself in this big old shroud of invisibility, and now nobody can see it, not even you. All right, so any other, well, we'll pause for, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in or say it, and we'll come to it. And then I will pause again when we reach the next section break. So go ahead and go on to the next slide. Okay, flying. Everybody's familiar with flying, and it is pretty easy, but we are still going to go over it just to be super clear about this, all right? Up here we have the Girapur Osprey for white and 2. Flying, 2/2, okay? Flying, it's another evasion ability, all right? Now, evasion abilities all talk about how this creature can be blocked, all right? And so the fact this has flying when it itself is a blocker is actually non-applicable. If you want to think about it in terms of a metaphor, the bird flying along up in the sky can swoop down in front of that 1/1 vigilant warrior creature token, smack in the face, and that thing is still blocked, okay? But when it is attacking, the bird can fly right over the warrior without being stopped. All right, go ahead, next slide. The proper wording of the flying ability says that it can only be blocked by other flying creatures or creatures with reach. So again, if you like the metaphor, a bird can fly smack into another bird, that sucker is blocked. Or if you've got a spider with really long arms, it can reach right up there and grab the bird right out of the air. So reach is that keyword ability, and it is just simply this creature can block a creature with flying. All right, go ahead and move on. Okay, haste. Here's where things start to get just a little bit more complicated. Before we talk about what haste is, we have to talk about what summoning sickness is. Summoning sickness is a trait of creatures which says that it cannot attack or tap to activate an ability that has this tap symbol right here until it has been continuously under your control since the beginning of the turn. Please notice I did not say anything at all about whether it's been on the battlefield. This is highly applicable. But first let's take a look at our friend the Aether Theorist. He's blue and 1, 1/3. When he enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy, and then here's his activated ability, complete with the tap symbol, pay 1 energy, scry 1. When he enters the battlefield, when he enters the battlefield under your control, he cannot attack that turn, and he can't activate this ability. That tap symbol is important. Please remember it. Okay. Now, why is it such a big deal that I say that it's about being under your control versus being on the battlefield? Well, let's go ahead and head on over to our worst enemy, Nicholas Bolas Planeswalker, the horror of Magic the Gathering. He is red, 2 black, blue, and 4 other for a whole heap of horror. What's important here, though, is his -2 ability, which says gain control of target creature. If I was to -2 that ability and swipe one of your creatures, would I be able to attack with it that turn? If you know the answer, go ahead and shout it out in the room.
It depends. Yes, you could on your turn because it was cast on their turn.
Nope. That's the tricky part. This is why haste gets so confusing for people. That is correct. There we go. We've got a judge in the making right here. He knows when to get technical. Does it have haste? That's an excellent point, okay? Usually if the creature doesn't have haste, When I swipe it, it has to be on my turn because Planeswalker's abilities are activated at sorcery speed. Okay? And so that means I got it that turn. And it has not been continuously under my control the entire time. So unless it has haste, it's just stuck sitting there. That is why cards like Act of Treason for red and 2 sorcery, gain control of target creature until end of turn, almost all of them, in fact to the best of my knowledge, all of them, have the next few lines, untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. If that line wasn't there, Act of Treason would just mean that you stop them from being able to block. You can't do anything else with that creature. Okay, go ahead and on to the next slide. So now that we know what Summoning Sickness is, how it relates to haste is very simple. Haste is the ability to ignore Summoning Sickness. If you're Uncropped Crasher for red and 2, have the untap cost. It does, as long as it has the symbol. What Kev Storm J is referring to is way back into the older cards of Magic the Gathering, there is a symbol that corresponds with the tap symbol, like this one, except it's black and the arrow moves backwards, and that is the untap symbol. Okay? There aren't a lot of cards that have them, but this rule does apply to that as well. So if it has a tap or untap symbol, it cannot be used on the turn it comes out, or, sorry, it cannot be used unless it's been continuously under your control or it has haste. Okay? All right, so I can't see any of the questions. You let me know if there are any?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so the Uncropped Crasher has haste, okay? And that means that as soon as he comes out, you are able to attack with him, you are able to exert him and get his really cool effect. Beast Color Savant, when he comes out, he's got haste, which means not only can you attack with him, but you can activate his activated ability that has this tap symbol. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, etc., etc. Now this guy over here is one of my favorite ironies of Magic the Gathering, the Bloodlost Inciter. 1 red, you get a 1/1 human warrior, and he's got a tap ability that says target creature gains haste until end of turn. Does he have haste? No, he cannot attack on the turn unless he's been under your control continuously. And you cannot activate his ability because he doesn't have haste unless you've controlled him continuously. So there he is, yelling at everybody to get started when he himself is just sitting back in the ranks, you know, screaming about stuff, apparently. Patrol Signaler. I'm guessing that Kev Storm J is actually pointing out one of the untapped symbols.
Yeah.
I believe that is accurate. We're going to get it. All right, we can go ahead and we'll stop here for a second and see if there are any questions, especially from you guys.
Yeah, it's one of the ones with the untapped symbol.
Okay.
For 1 and a white, you get a 1/1 Kithkin Soldier who has 1 and a white, untap a 1/1 white Kithkin Soldier.
That is correct. I don't know if it can be brought up on Twitch, but we do have confirmation that the Patrol Signaler is in fact one that has the untapped symbol on it, for those of you who are looking for an example.
But you can tap a Summoning Sickness creature if the tap ability is on a different card, right?
Ah, here's one that's actually very applicable to Standard. You are correct.
So like Crypt Breaker buddy taps his buddies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can be Summon Sickness.
If they, yeah.
Yeah,
If
so
the
let's
card
say-
forces the other creatures to tap, then it doesn't. Summoning Sickness doesn't affect that.
That is correct.
Just like vehicles, right?
Exactly like vehicles. And so for those of you who aren't parlayed to this conversation, what we're talking about is what if I throw out let's go one without haste. Let's say I throw out a Bloodlust Inciter and I want him to crew my vehicle. Well, the crew ability says tap 2. Oh, but he's summon sick. I can't do that, right? Well, actually in this case you can, right? Because first of all, the tap symbol of the crew specifically does not have this symbol on it. It actually says the word tap, okay? They did that, well, my assumption is that they did that so that it would be easier to draw attention to the differences in these abilities. And the second reason, because that ability is on the other card, not on this card. It is the vehicle card that is asking you to tap the Bloodlust Inciter. And it doesn't care very much whether or not it's summon sick because it isn't tapping itself. Okay, that is the important part. Okay, so go ahead and next slide. Ah, Vigilance. One of my all-time favorite, the Mantis Rider. Blue, red, and white. Flying, vigilant, haste, 3/3. Vigilance seems really easy. It's its rule is really easy. Vigilance just means that when this creature attacks, attacking does not cause it to tap. Surprisingly, you get a lot of questions around this because people will make assumptions that that simple rule of vigilance means more than it does. It really is that straightforward. So, for example, if I cast Decision Paralysis, blue and 3, tap up to 2 target creatures, those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step, and I get the Mantis Rider with that, can the Mantis Rider still attack? This has come up.
No, because it's tapping it, not anything to do with attacking, and it's already tapped when you move to attack.
That is exactly correct, yeah. It's already tapped. The tapped creature can't attack. Whether it has vigilance has no bearing on the matter whatsoever. And okay, let's say we've got this Mantis Rider. It did the attacking. And now they're coming back at us and I want to defend with my Fleet Wheel Cruiser, okay? The Fleet Wheel Cruiser is one of those vehicles we were just talking about, Trample Haste. When it enters the battlefield, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Crew 2, notice here it says the word tap. It doesn't have the symbol. Tap any number of creatures you control with a power of 2 or more. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Okay, so we've attacked with this. Can it crew the vehicle?
After we've attacked?
After we've attacked, it's now his turn. Yeah. Yes, it can, right? Because it is currently untapped. Just because it has vigilance doesn't mean that you can't tap it for other reasons, doesn't mean that it can't be tapped for other reasons, and doesn't mean that you can't use it for things like crewing, etc., etc.
So if I tap it to crew the vehicle, can Decision Paralysis get cast on it to double tap it?
Double tapping something is highly ineffective in the game of Magic, but depending on your timing, no, actually it doesn't. The minute you decide to crew, tapping your creature is a part of the cost. And so they could cast Decision Paralysis.
So, but it's already, it doesn't affect the stack, right?
It doesn't affect the stack in that it will stay tapped because of the crew, and now you've double tapped it, and it won't untap during the next untap step. But too late, it's already an artifact creature until end of turn.
Nice Zombieland reference.
Oh, all right. So go ahead and moving on to the next one. I think this is actually a pause point. Ah, yes, it is. Okay, before I move on to the slightly more difficult ones, are there any questions about what we have already covered? Have I forgotten anything important?
No.
Not so far?
think so.
All right.
Yeah, no.
Okay, beautiful. All right, if we're ready to move on, let's go ahead and move on. Death Touch. Now, the next few that I'm going to go over, it really helps if, as a judge, you just memorize the rules regarding them. More questions have come up around Death Touch and Lifelink than almost anything else I've done, okay? And the rules regarding Death Touch are as follows. Oh, first our card. Here's our Wasteland Scorpion. Black and 2. Creature Scorpion. He has Death Touch, and cycling for 2, he's a 2/2, okay? The Death Touch rules that you're going to want to know as a judge are very simple. There's only 3 of them, okay? Any non-zero amount of damage to a creature is lethal, okay? Rule 2, this is not limited to combat damage. Rule 3, it works from any zone that the creature is in. Now, I translated this. If you go to the rule book and look up Death Touch, it has a paragraph. The first sentence of the paragraph explains why Death Touch is lethal in a combat damage situation. The second sentence deals with why Death Touch is lethal in non-combat situations. It's a subtle difference. I missed it for a lot of readings, but it is in there. So this is not a reflection of what you'll find in the comprehensive rulebook, but this is what it comes down to. This third rule is less applicable than you would think. We'll cover that in a minute. Go ahead, next slide. The fact that the damage it deals will be Death Touch, no matter what zone it comes into, is a little bit archaic. I know the card is hard to see. I will read it out. This is the Selfless Exorcist. For 2 white and 3. You have the tap symbol. Remove target creature card in a graveyard from the game. That card deals damage equal to its power to the Selfless Exorcist. It's a 3/4. So if we take the Wasteland Scorpion, our little 2/2 Death Touch, and the Selfless Exorcist decides that that thing just really has to go away, the Selfless Exorcist would still die. because that is death touch damage, even though it's from the graveyard. Okay? Now, I asked a Slack room full of judges if they could think of examples where this applied. This is the only one we could come up with. The only one. Hyper rare almost doesn't do it justice. Most of the time you're going to find something more like this. Next slide, please. This is Fling, one of my current favorite cards in Standard. We got red and 1 for an instant that allows you to sacrifice a creature, and when you do, Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to a target creature or player. In this case, what is doing the damage? The Scorpion or Fling?
Fling.
Which means that its damage is not death touch, and so it will not have the same effect. Yeah, there we go. The subtle differences mean everything in this game.
So pathway arrows,
Could you look it up, please?
it's a equipment,
Yeah?
and it's like pay 2 mana, tap target creature, and do 1 damage to target creature.
Okay.
Or tap the creature it's equipped to do 1 damage to the target creature.
Yeah.
Would that be death touch translate through the equipment?
Nope.
So the
What?
pathway
Not sure how it's
arrows.
worded. Some probably quote that wrong.
Yeah, the pathway arrows says equipped creature has 2 tap
So it's the
this
creature.
creature.
Ah,
does
there
that.
we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
found another example. Memorable as the day. Could you say its name one more time out loud, Jeremiah?
Pathway arrows.
The pathway arrow is another one. This applies less about where it is in the zone because it will still be on the battlefield when it's doing it. But in the case where the pathway arrows gives the creature the chance to do the damage, that will be death touch. That is called the Selfless Exorcist. It's one of the few examples we could find of where death touch damage would be dealt from a zone other than the battlefield. All right. Okay, go ahead and next slide. Okay, lifelink. Lifelink is actually quite a bit like death touch in that they are both adjusting what's going on with damage. Whoop. Ah, yay, we found it.
So yeah, the creature has that.
There we go.
So it's
Because
not
it gives
verified.
the ability to the creature, that's what makes the difference there, and that's why death touch would still apply.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you.
no worries. Okay, so lifelinks rules that you're going to want to know. Yes, actually, I can do that. I'm happy to post these slides, that's no problem. Wow, you guys are pretty good. I should have come here for it. All right, so moving on to lifelink. Okay, the rules that you need to have memorized with lifelink are as follows. Damage dealt by a creature with lifelink causes its controller to gain that much life. It is important that you understand here 2 things. First of all, it says that the controller gains that much life, not the owner. Okay, so if you steal my lifelink Sacred Cat 1 lifelink 1/1, if you steal him and hit me, yeah, you're going to get that lifelink, not me. And the other one is that when it does the damage, you gain that much life. There's no interrupt. There is no stack. This happens immediately. The damage is done. You go up life. Period. Same time. Right that instant, okay? This also functions no matter what zone the creature deals damage from. There's that Selfless Exorcist again. And multiple sources of lifelink dealing damage at the same time still causes multiple life gain events. Okay, I will go over this in more detail. Just 1 second. Go ahead and next slide.
We have a quick question.
Yes.
What is the technical name for that instance?
There isn't one.
Where-
And that's an excellent question.
Where the lifelink, where it's just an immediate happening of damage is dealt, you gain that much life.
Okay. This is an excellent question, okay? If there are those of you who may not have heard it, he's wondering if there is a technical term that explains the timing of lifelink, you going up in life versus the damage being dealt. And the answer is there isn't one, and that is significant. We cannot say that it happens at the same instant because instant means something in Magic the Gathering. No.
No.
I'll get to you, Kev Storm J, in just 1 second, okay? But, so we cannot say that it happens at the same instant because instant means something in the game of Magic the Gathering. They leave it unnamed and simply tell you that it happens at exactly the same time, okay?
You don't lose the game from damage, you lose the game from state-based actions.
And we'll get to that in just a second. No spoilers. All right.
Oops.
So Kev Storm J asks, if a lifelink creature gains lifelink again, is the lifelink gained twice? The answer is no. In the rulebooks, you notice it does specifically state that separate instances of lifelink on the same creature are redundant. And this is actually a great place for me to put a plug-in for actually going through this section in your rulebook. Just a glance down. There are a lot of small rules that you never think will be an issue, but if you just know that they're there, you'll be able to reference them if there is a need. Lifelink is redundant, death touch is redundant, don't know how you kill something twice, but you know, it is redundant, so is flying. A lot of them are. Exalted is different than that, huh? Yes. I actually don't deal with Exalted in this lecture, which is a shame, but you will see it briefly, I believe. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what Jeremiah was talking about, how immediate, not instant, how immediate is this life gain stuff? Well, let's say that you guys are attacking me with your, I'm going to slaughter this word, lethal sailback for red and 4, creature lizard 4/5. You are also attacking me with your dune beetle, black 1, insect creature 1/4. So coming at my face is a 5/4 and a 1/4. I only have 1 life left, and I'm desperate. I didn't have any creatures on the board, but thank you, Flash, for letting me get something out there as quickly as possible. Now I've got the Heron's Grace Champion. White, green, and 2, creature, human, knight, Flash, lifelink. When it enters, if I had any other humans, they could have gotten 1/1 in lifelink. Unfortunately, he's all by himself attempting to save my life with 3/3. Okay? If I block, what would be the best place to block, and how much life would I end up with at the end of it? You guys in my room are going to be picked on.
You're only 1.
I'm only at 1 life. I've got a 3/3 defender with lifelink, and I'm going up against a 5/4 and a 1/4.
So you're blocking the 5/4 with the 3/3.
That's correct.
You'll gain 3 life off the life link and take 1 damage from the beetle.
Okay, so what do I end up with?
2, 3.
3? Yep, that's right. Points if you're better at basic math than I am, but we end up at 3 life because we blocked this guy, and since he doesn't have trample, he's not doing any. So I will gain 3 life from what happens here, and then I take the 1 life. And that will all happen at exactly the same moment. And because you only die because of state-based actions, which aren't checked until priority is about to go around passing, you're still in the game. Although, admitted, considering your situation, probably not for very long. Yep, we got it. End with 3 life. I hope you haven't forgotten our darling little dune beetle. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so go ahead, next slide. Back to the slightly more complicated third rule, which is that multiple sources of lifelink do still count as multiple life gain events. Let's say I've got a much sweeter board this time. I'm rolling an Archangel of Thune, 2 white and 3. She's a creature angel, flying, lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Along beside her is the Aerial Responder, 2 white and 1, flying, vigilant, lifelink, 2/3, and the Aetherborn Marauder at 1 black, 3, flying, lifelink. When it enters, he's got another ability. I'm not going to worry about that right now. 2/2, okay? They all attack at once. And my poor fool of an opponent does not have any flying creatures to block with, so all this damage is going to go through. And here's the part where players get mixed up. Because all that damage happened at once. You gained all that life at once, right? So the Archangel of Thune's triggered ability is only going to trigger once, right? No. The rules spell it out for you in black and white to make it as easy as possible. Because these are different sources of lifelink, even though you're gaining damage all at the same time, you have 3 instances of life gain. How many +1/+1 counters get put on all of my creatures?
3.
That's exactly right. I get 3 +1/+1 counters on all of my creatures. I love this deck. Yes, it would be. Alright, sorry, we have a comment that says, oh, this board would be gross. Okay, Go ahead and next slide when you're ready. Do we have any audio from phones in the room?
Yeah, we're not making any noise.
Yeah, there are no audio phones that we know of. I'll turn my cell phone off just in case. All right, go ahead. Here we go. Now we're going to talk about first strike and double strike. Okay, up on the screen right now, I've got Thalia, Heretic Cather, for 1 white and 2. She's got first strike. She also has an ability that says creatures and non-basic lands that your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. She's a 3/2. We'll see more of her in a minute. Beside her is the Scrapper Champion for red and 3, double strike. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. When it attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. He's a 2/2 at the moment. First strike and double strike seems really easy, but as a judge, you need to know the technicality of what's going on here, because a lot of weird rules and circumstances will fall in the gap right where your knowledge is, okay? So please understand that when first strike and double strike happen, or I should put this more exactly if I'm going to sit there and lecture you about exactness, if a creature with first strike or double strike is in a combat, notice I'm not saying that they are attacking, just that they are in a combat, this does work when they're defenders, you are actually creating another combat damage step that goes in front of the normal one. I'm going to nickname that combat damage step 1 and combat damage step 2. The first strike will deal its damage in combat damage step 1, thus the phrase first strike. Double strike will hit in both combat damage steps, thus the phrase double strike. Okay? And let's go ahead and go on to the next slide, and we'll talk more about how this applies in combat. Next slide. Anytime.
While we're waiting for the next slide, you've mentioned the rulebook a few times. Where can you find the rulebook?
Oh my goodness, do we not know that? I mentioned Oracle text and I didn't tell them where to go for that one too. The rule book can be found online. You just go to your search engine and type in Magic the Gathering Comprehensive Rules. If you go to the first link, you'll probably be taken right to Magic the Gathering's official website, and they'll have a section where it's, here are the beginner rules, and then they'll have a section that says, and here are the comprehensive rules if you're really that crazy. That's the one that you're going to want to haul out, okay? Those are your new best friends if you do want to become a judge. And if you are looking for the Oracle text, which is the nickname for what a card says according to the rules, the best place to find that is at gatherer.com. You just go in, type in the name in the simple search bar, and then it'll pop up. You'll have a visual of what the card looks like, and then you will have what the card is actually saying. Does the first and second combat step only appear when there is a first? Yes, that is correct, Kev Storm J. If there isn't a creature with first strike or double strike, that extra combat damage step does not exist, and there's only one. Okay, could I get the next slide up?
We have a
There
question
we go.
real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
So I have a follow-up question just on that last point.
Yeah.
But is there a physical copy of a massive comprehensive rule book that you can acquire?
Officially,
I'm more
no.
of a physical person.
Officially, they do not print out or allow you to buy the comprehensive rulebooks to the best of my knowledge because they change the rulebooks so often. They are always adding the keyword abilities that are coming out with new sets that are making little tweaks to improve it. But if you're anything like me, slightly crazy, you may want to do this, which is where I went and printed the thing out, took it to a binder, cost about $10, but now I've got a physical copy of the comprehensive rulebook. It is outdated already, but most of the rules will stay the same long enough that this has been a very valuable tool for me.
Was there ever? Well,
Yeah, see, Kev Storm Day has done it. He did the same thing. He printed up the rule book, and now it's updated.
There
Well,
have been physical copies that they've printed out back in like Alpha Beta Revised.
Oh, the
Collector's
optimists.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
All right, so back to
One of
first
those.
strike. Here's our darling Thalia again. She's our 3/2 first striker, in case you've forgotten. And she's going up against a grizzly bear. I'm going to walk through this first one, and then I'm going to have some of my poor victims right here in front of me walk through the others, okay? So Thalia and the grizzly bear are in combat together. Thalia is attacking, the grizzly bear is defending. Not that that'll matter, but we'll say that for now. In the first combat damage step, she is going to deal her 3 damage to the grizzly bear, marking 3 damage onto his little hide. He's only got 2 toughness. Now this is a full combat damage step. That means that priority will pass. And when priority passes, we are going to be checking state-based actions. You will hear more about that at one of our other lessons. But for right now, just trust me, when those state-based actions are checked, that poor little grizzly bear goes immediately to the graveyard and isn't heard from again. And so in the second combat damage step, he is not actually there to do his damage to Thalia. Okay, so who would care to volunteer to try and talk me through Thalia versus the Dukara Peafowl? You ready?
Sure.
All right. Now, for those of you who cannot see the card, the Dukara Peafowl is a 2/4. It does have an ability that gives it flying, but that is not applicable. Go ahead.
All right, so the peacock there will take 3 damage to its 4 toughness, survive the state check, and do its 2 damage to Thalia in the second damage phase, which would then resolve and Thalia would die.
Okay, so we've got the Peafowl surviving and Thalia dying. That looks good. All right, and now we're gonna throw Thalia up against our Flayer drone. Red, black, devoid. It also has first strike, and it is a 3/1. You want to go for it?
Sure.
Okay.
In a combat, I guess, either one attacking, the first damage step would occur. They would both deal their damage simultaneously, and both do not have the toughness to live through such an attack, and would both die as the first combat damage step ends.
Yep, as soon as the state-based actions are checked in the first damage step. That is correct. Okay, so yeah, not too difficult, all right? Next slide. Okay, here's Thalia Heretic Cather. We're going to throw her up against the Wasteland Scorpion. He's our old Death Touch buddy. Death Touch 2/2 versus Thalia Heretic Cather, first strike, 3/2. Anybody want to go for it?
I'm good.
Good. No, you're done. Jeremiah, do you want to do it? Or?
I'll do it.
Oh, you'll do it. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So the first strike will resolve against the 2/2, and state check will remove it from the battlefield, so it won't have an opportunity to touch Thalia.
Which means that its Death Touch becomes
Null and void.
null and void, completely unapplicable because it doesn't even get to do damage. And that works if you're throwing her up against something with lifelink as well. If the lifelink doesn't have a chance to do damage, yeah, its controller is not going to gain any life. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Moving on to, we've got double strike, and I'll walk through the first one real quickly, as quickly as I can. We're dealing with a double strike 2/2. He does not have any counters on him, in spite of the ability, and I'm throwing him up against the Peafowl. In the first combat damage step, my double striker will deal 2 damage to the Peafowl, marking 2 damage there. Then the Peafowl will deal 2 damage to my Scrapper Champion at the same time that the Scrapper Champion does 2 damage again during the second combat damage step. So now I've got 2 damage marked on here because of the Peafowl and 4 damage marked on here because of the Scrapper Champion. They are both going to be put into the graveyard when those state-based actions are checked. Okay? Flayer Drone, really quickly. Somebody want to go through it? Oh, you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
You're getting good at this.
So Scrapper Champion and Flayer Drone are in the first damage step. They both resolve their damage, which each way takes away their toughness. They both die, and there is no second damage step.
That is correct. Technically, I believe there is still the second damage step. It's just that
There's
nothing
nothing
occurs
there,
in it,
yeah.
right? And the Prophetic Flame Speaker also has double strike, and it's a 1/3, and just like the rest, it'll deal 1 here in the first, 2 will be dealt here in the first, 1 will be dealt in the second, 2 will be dealt in the second. I've got 2 damage marked, 4 damage marked, they both die. Easy enough. Kev Storm J is bringing up the fact of Drana, Liberator of Malkir, the interesting example of first strike and timing of effects in combat.
I know this
Everybody knows this one. This was an interesting card. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is a legendary creature, vampire ally from Battle for Zendikar. She has flying and first strike, and whenever she deals damage,
Combat damage.
thank you, combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on all other attacking creatures you control.
On each attacking.
On each attacking creature you control. There we go. That's a little clearer. I can read that. So, I'm guessing that you guys probably already know what happens. Somebody want to explain it really quickly for the microphone?
So let's say there's no flyers or no reach blockers. She flies over, does damage to the player. That first damage resolves in the first damage phase, triggers the 1/1 counters to the rest of your team, which allows them to attack for have one more power and toughness in the second damage phase.
That is exactly correct. Because of her first strike, she will pump all of your non-first strike creatures before they do damage. It's a really cool ability. All right.
And from our first lesson, how long is the creature attacking?
Oh, this is a good one. Do you remember?
How long is it attacking?
When does an attacking creature cease being an attacking creature?
When the attack step ends.
The attack step? You gotta be careful.
The combat phase ends.
There you
Yep.
go, very good.
Whew.
It is one of the is it the very last thing that happens? I think it is. The very last thing that happens is the creatures that were in combat are no longer considered in combat at the end of the end of combat step in the combat phase, if I've said that right. There we go. All right, go ahead, next slide. Okay, somebody mentioned Exalted. I may or may not have played with this a little bit. This is her pick of the many. Blue, white, green, one other, legendary creature, Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. And I'm mean. I'm also rolling a Trigon Predator. I've got blue-green 1, he's flying, harder to block. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And my poor fool of an opponent does not have any flying or reach. And all he's got some grizzly bears, maybe a couple of enchantments, and a couple of artifacts I'm looking forward to destroying. And the Trigon Predator attacks alone. He gets the Exalted ability, as well as this one that gives him double strike. When both combat damage steps are over, how many artifacts or enchantments do I get to destroy?
2.
That is correct. I get to destroy 2. He dealt combat damage twice. Yes! And please note that you will destroy that enchantment or the artifact before the second combat damage step goes on. Ooh, that might be a good idea. We'll see how fast we can type for you, Kevstorm J.
So, the first damage step, that damage resolves. Artifact or enchantment gets destroyed, and then the second damage step happens.
That is exactly correct.
So
yes.
if there's an enchantment that affects something, that could actually impact. Okay.
Yes, it could, and it pays to pay attention to that. During most casual games, people will forget about this. You'll wind up destroying 2 afterwards, if you even remember that you get to destroy 2. But if you have an enchantment that is currently impacting combat, you'll pay a little bit more attention, I'm pretty sure. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Okay, now here's one of those rules that you're just going to want to memorize. It talks about who gets to attack during that second combat damage step, okay? And the rule is very simple, a whopping 1 sentence. Only creatures that haven't hit before, or creatures that currently have double strike, can hit in the second combat damage step. So let's say that you're trying to be sneaky. You've got a first strike creature, and you're going to remove that ability between the first combat damage step and the second combat damage step. Well, it no longer has first strike, so it gets to hit again, right? Not according to this rule, okay? And let's say that your opponent, who is absolutely desperate to keep you from killing him, realizes almost too late that he can remove double strike from one of your creatures before the second combat damage step. If that double striking creature has already hit will he get to hit again?
No.
No, he does not currently have double strike. He has already hit. And let's say that your opponent is super sneaky and they want to give one of your other creatures first strike after the first combat damage step because that'll prevent it from hitting, right? Yeah, no. This is what that rule is covering. All that sneaky stuff, yeah, it doesn't work. Okay? So just make sure that you know this. It doesn't come up often, but if it comes up, the answer should be there for you. All right. Go ahead and next slide. Okay. Here's why I discussed these abilities in the order that I did. Okay? Fight cards. All right? I talked about lifelink and death touch, and then I talked about first strike and double strike. Remember how I said that lifelink and death touch changed how damage occurred? First strike and double strike change how combat occurs. And fight is the keyword ability. We all probably know it. It very simply says that two creatures are going to deal damage equal to their power to each other at the same time. It's found on cards like Hunt the Weak. Green and 3. It says target creature will get a +1/+1 counter, then that creature fights another target creature that you don't control. Okay? But the question about what happens with fight usually happens at about the lifelink, death touch, first strike, double strike point.
We have a question in the chat.
Oh, there we go. What about giving first strike creature double strike after the first strike hit? Well, let's look at the rule. It says that if it currently has double strike, it will get to hit. So as long as that double strike is there and as long as it is legal, it will be able to hit again. There we go. Gifted Aetherborn. That's a pretty card, okay? So, back to the fight cards, okay? With a fight card, the abilities that apply in fight apply to damage because you are dealing damage, but you aren't engaging in combat. So abilities that affect combat will have no influence on a fight card, okay? So, lifelink and death touch, they matter in a fight. First strike and double strike, they don't. So, for our example, we have the Aven Initiate. He's blue and 3, Bird Warrior, he's got flying. He's a 3/2, and I'm going to play Hunt the Weak. I put the +1/+1 counter on him, making him an effective 4/3, and now he's going to go into a fight. If he's going up against Thalia the Heretic Cather, it does not matter that she has first strike. She is going to deal her damage at the exact same time as the Aven does, and they will both die unless my basic math is off, but I'm pretty sure on that one. Okay. So, if we change it though, and we throw our Aven Initiate with the +1/+1 counter up against the Gifted Aetherborn, what happens? Anybody care? Go right ahead.
They will both die because they will deal their damage at the same exact time, and the Gifted Aetherborn has death touch, so any non-zero amount of damage is considered lethal damage.
Bingo! For those of you who may not have heard it, they will both die because the Gifted Aetherborn, even though its power shouldn't be enough to bring the toughness down to 0, it is death touch damage, and it's lethal. So our poor Aven Initiate is going to die. What else will happen? Ah, we have the amendment.
Yes, I was going to say, as a side note, you will gain 2 life because the damage dealt from Gifted Aetherborn you'll gain that much life because he has lifelink. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that is how this works. Hopefully this is clear enough that you will be able to see this when you're going in and answering judge calls. All right, go ahead and next slide. Small note for fight cards, please be aware that there are imitation non-fight cards out there. This is Prey Upon for 1 green, sorcery, target creature you control fights, target creature you don't control. Any card that is a fight card will have that keyword fight right in there, okay? Rabid Bite with green and 1, sorcery, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Well, that sounds a lot like fight, it's not. It's cooler than fight. It just means that your lucky creature just gets to go around hitting something. Alright, so pay attention to that, read your cards carefully, and don't mistake things that look alike for things that are the same. Okay, next slide. Okay, protection. There are a lot of cards up here, okay? And I'm going to run through them pretty quick. If you're on Twitch, you may only wind up seeing my True Name Nemesis and the Stormbreath Dragon, alright? Listen. What I'm just trying to get across is how vast and varied protection is. For example, the True Name Nemesis for 2 blue and 1 it gets protection from the chosen player that you've chosen when it enters the battlefield. I've got God Willing up. This is an instant that gives target creature you control protection from a color of your choice until end of turn. Enemy of the Guild Pack, protection from multicolor. The Polis Crusher, that one's got protection from enchantments. Stormbreath Dragon, 2 red and 3. Creature Dragon 4/4, flying haste, protection from white. And Spectre Ward. This one gets +2/+2 and has protection from all colors. Okay? So what's the main takeaway from this? Protection's out there. There's a lot of various things you can be protected from. But whenever you see the word protection, it is referring to 4 things and only 4 things. That is the debt of protection. Go ahead and next slide. Okay, the debt of protection. D stands for damage. Damage is prevented. E stands for equipped or enchanted. It can't be equipped or enchanted by. B cannot be blocked by. T cannot be targeted by. And here to help me demonstrate, we have the much fearsome Karoo Meerkats. Green and 1. It is 2/1. It has protection from blue. Okay? So we're going to throw our protected from blue Meerkats up against the Cryptic Serpent, which is 2 blue and 5, for a 6/5. It has other abilities. I'm not particularly worried about that. If the Meerkat is attacking, can the Cryptic Serpent block?
No.
No, it's right there. It can be blocked. And if this one has the gall to attack, the mighty Meerkats will be able to block without fear. Why?
And can't be dealt any lethal damage from a blue source.
Oh, we have to be very careful how we say this.
Damage is prevented.
There
from a
you
blue
go.
source.
Damage is prevented. Notice it is italicized. The fact that this damage is prevented is significant. Aqueous Form will not be able to touch the Meerkat. Can't be enchanted. Clutch of the Currents can't target it. Can't be targeted. And the Angler Drake is just out of luck because his ability won't be able to target it. He won't be able to defend it. And, you know, if you give that Meerkat wings, the game's over, man. That Angler Drake is just going to just sit there being useless. Okay, so go ahead and next slide.
What if we had another creature, Grizzly Bears, who we enchanted with an aqueous form, and then we used God's Willing to give it protection from blue? What would happen?
All right, so Jeremiah asked, let's say we've got Grizzly Bears, and we have an aqueous form that is already attached to it, and then we use God Willing to give it protection from blue until end of turn. Maybe we didn't think about that really well. Because of the protection specifically, it will cause the aqueous form to fall off, and it will be put into the graveyard as a state-based action. Now, I have personally made this mistake where I mix up protection with hexproof. The fact that this falls off because you gave something protection is an aspect of the protection rules themselves. And so if you have something that is enchanted, so to clarify, if you have a Grizzly Bear that's enchanted with aqueous form and then you give it hexproof, that aqueous form won't fall off then because hexproof is not protection. Try to keep them separate. Easy enough. Okay, if damage is replaced with another effect, like infect, will the protected creature get the -1/-1 counters? And there we go. Broadcaster has already answered that for me. The damage is prevented, so it won't replace. You guys are getting ahead of my slides. But don't worry. That just means I'll cover it faster when I get there. Okay, next slide, please. Meerkats, Flameblade Adept, they've defeated all of my blue cards. I'm getting desperate. So I'm going to take my Flameblade Adept. He's a red. He's a 1/2 with Menace, Jackal Warrior, and I'm going to play a Retraction Helix, not on these Meerkats that I can't even target, but I'm going to play it on my Flameblade Adept. The Retraction Helix is blue, and it says until end of turn, target creature gains tap. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. It resolves. The Flameblade Adapt taps, and it returns the Meerkat to my hand. Can I do that?
Yes,
Why?
because it's not being targeted from a blue source. It's being targeted by a red creature who has an ability that was given to him by a blue card.
Perfect! You even got the language down. That is correct. For those of you who may not have heard, the effect is not coming from this blue card. What's happening is the red card that was given the ability is now targeting the Meerkats, and that is perfectly legal even if it is protected. Okay, go ahead, next slide. All right, so Kangaroo Meerkat versus the Contraband Kingpin. First and foremost, does the protection apply in this instance?
Yes,
Why?
because he is partially a blue creature.
Actually, he is a blue creature.
Well,
Yeah, I know,
yeah.
right? Nothing like a stickler for a judge, okay? The reason is because he is a blue creature. He is blue and black, okay? And so even though he is there I did it, see? Even though he is also black, the meerkats are still protected from him, okay? So let's say these two get into a fight. The meerkats are attacking. Can the Contraband Kingpin defend?
no.
No, because you can't block. That was easy. Contraband Kingpin, realizing that he's utterly worthless as a defender, decides to go on the offensive, and he's going to attack. For those of you that don't have the card up, the Contraband Kingpin, blue and black, also has lifelink. Okay? 1/4. He attacks. This time, the meerkats defend. What happens?
Damage is prevented, therefore lifelink won't happen.
Perfect. Damage is prevented with protection, so lifelink doesn't matter. It didn't get to deal the damage, therefore no life was gained. All right, next.
What if my Contraband Kingpin attacks and you block with the Crew Meerkat and I had casted Insult to Injury that said damage can't be prevented this turn?
Let's see. Well, Jeremiah is asking a stump the judge question, which is, we're in this kind of an attack situation, but he's actually played the card Insult to Injury. You'll see that a little later on the slides, but for now, just know that it says that damage cannot be prevented and that sources deal double damage, correct? Until
Something
end
like
of turn,
that,
turn
yeah.
okay?
It says, it can't be prevented from any source.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to give my ruling and then you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. My answer is that damage can't be prevented. And in Magic, one of the 4 golden rules that they have at the very front of that comprehensive rulebook is that can't will trump can. So if it says that damage can't be prevented, even though the general rules say that damage would be prevented, in this instant, that is nullified by the card Insult to Injury. Am I correct?
Yes.
Jeremiah confirms I am not wrong. Woohoo!
So
All right.
the meerkats die?
Meerkats will die. Finally! Gosh, they needed
And
that.
lifelink happens.
And life.
And lifelink happens. Yay!
I
Double
think
lifelink
it also
happens.
says players can't gain life, but.
Oh, that would be dreadful. Okay, next slide, please. All that work. Okay, so those meerkats are on the board. I am weepingly desperate to get rid of them, and all I've got in my hand is a Cyclonic Rift. Blue and 1, it's an instant that says return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. But wait, Overload for blue and 6. You may cast this spell for its overload cost if you do change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. Since I cast it for the overload cost, now it reads return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Have I gotten rid of the meerkats?
Yes.
Absolutely. Just because they're protected from blue does not mean they are completely untouchable by blue. As long as it doesn't target, this blue spell will impact the meerkats. Why can't it be prevented? Let's see, is there any clarification on this? Why can't the damage be prevented? Oh, the question was regarding the spell Insult to Injury, which I didn't have up on the board. And so what happened was the meerkats, oh, this would have had to have been played in the sorcery speed.
We had a ley line of anticipation.
All right. So we were magically able to cast a sorcery card at instant speed after the meerkats the Contraband King attacks and the meerkats are there. This card is cast and it says that the damage can't be prevented. And that is why the damage in that instance could not be prevented, because the card overruled can't trumps can. Okay, so next card. Is target different than chosen creature?
Choose a creature.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. And I do know that, but I don't know the details exactly. Are we going to cover that in another lesson?
So, with the protection, it specifically says part of protection is this creature can't be targeted by spells or abilities. So if it has the word target in it, it can't be targeted, essentially. But there are cards such as Council's Judgment.
Council's Judgment, just in case you missed that.
Says you choose a creature, and because you're not targeting it specifically, you're able to get around the protection.
Perfect. And that's actually what we're trying to cover here with the Cyclonic Rift and with the next slide. It is another one of those judge technical moments. Because the card that Jeremiah mentioned doesn't have the word target on it, protection doesn't address it. Protection really is only those four things: the damage, equipped and enchant, blocking, and targeting.
There is one more. It rarely comes up, and it's one of those weird time spiral cards. You also can't fortify something with protection.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you for correcting me.
It
Comes up so never often that I totally even forgot it was there. You cannot fortify something with protection.
What is fortify?
I've never even seen it. I don't think I've even heard of it.
It's like on one card from Time Spiral.
It's on one card from Time Spiral. This might be why I haven't heard of it. Next slide when you can. Is target different than chosen? So yeah, we did answer that question. The answer is yes. So if it says target, that's when protection will apply. If it doesn't specifically say target, it doesn't. Stormbreath Dragon again. He was my red one with flying, haste, and protection from white. And now I've got Wrath of God. For 2 white and 2, destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Because you don't see the word target, this is going to hit my poor dragon, who probably didn't deserve it. It's struggling to catch up. All right, next slide when you're ready. Okay, the next keyword that we're going to go over is indestructible. Indestructible is yet another one of those times when they're being really specific. It means that the target creature can't be destroyed. Oh, okay, well great. What does destroyed in Magic the Gathering mean? Destroyed in Magic the Gathering means these things, okay? It means it will not be done in or killed by lethal damage. It doesn't die to death touch damage, and it won't die to effects that say, indestructible means that it won't die to lethal damage, it won't die to death touch damage, and it won't die to effects that say destroy. Now, it's important to notice that destroyed, that word, means those things, okay? And so, tossing it around casually when you may mean dies or goes to the graveyard, it can be a little hazardous when you're a judge. So when you learn that words mean something, being exact makes rulings and understanding what's going on easier, okay? So go ahead, next slide. Oh, I forgot to, I'll introduce him in a minute. Go ahead, next slide. He's on the next one too. This is our Darksteel Gargoyle. We just paid 7 mana for him. He has flying, and Darksteel Gargoyle is indestructible. He's a 3/3. And we're going to play the game, does this get rid of him? Okay, with the understanding of what destroy means, just those 3 things, we're trying to get this puppy off the board, and the first thing we're going to throw at him is Stinging Shot for 1 green. Instant, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature with flying. Will that get rid of him?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it'll drop his toughness to 0, and with the state check, it'll be 0.
Perfect. Because it drops his toughness down to 0, he will be put into the graveyard as a state-based action. That is not destroyed. Okay? So, his indestructibility isn't impacted. Doomblade, black and 1. Destroy target non-black creature. Will that get rid of him?
Nope.
Nope, because the effect specifically says the word destroy. Electrify. Red and 3, Electrify deals 4 damage to target creature. Will that get rid of him?
No.
No.
Because he'll have 4 damage marked on him, like you said.
Yeah, but is it lethal damage?
It is lethal damage.
So that is
The
correct.
lethal damage won't destroy it.
That is
Remember.
perfect. Absolutely. So it will do lethal damage. Lethal is anything over its toughness, but because it is indestructible, it won't go to the graveyard. Celestial Flare, 2 white. Target player sacrifices an attacking or blocking creature. Let's say Darksteel Gargoyle is the only attacking creature. Will that get rid of him?
Yes.
Because?
He's the only creature in sacrificing is not destroyed.
And sacrificing is not destroying. It really is that easy. Once you know what destroy means, it becomes much easier to determine whether or not a certain effect will get rid of it. Next slide, please. Just 3 more cases. We've got Cast Out, which is white and 3, Flash, when it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until cast out leaves the battlefield. This'll work. Still not being destroyed, so you can exile indestructible creatures. Grasp of Darkness is very similar to our -1/-1 counters, but this time it only gives the -1 -1s temporarily. Grasp of Darkness, 2 black, target creature gets -4/4 until end of turn. Will that work against Indestructible?
Yes.
For the exact same reason it works the first time, because we're bringing its toughness below 0. That is not destroy. And Baleful Strix, he's our black and blue flying Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. 1/1. If these two go up against each other, will our gargoyle die?
No.
No. Why not specifically?
Death Touch is lethal, lethal damage, won't destroy indestructible.
Yeah, you got it. Sam, once you know the meaning of destroy, it gets real easy. Okay.
No.
Sorry.
No, go right ahead.
If the Darksteel Gargoyle is shocked and then gets a -1/1 counter from Grasping Dunes, it will not kill it because its toughness and power will be 2/2, and then it'll have the 2 damage marked on it, but it won't be actually lowering the toughness to 0 or below.
That's perfect. I hope you heard that, Kev Storm J. If you didn't, let us know. But he did actually answer your question, and he answered it exactly right. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Okay, we're going to do the Angel's Arena today. This is our Angel of Deliverance. She's 2 white and 6. She has Flying and Delirium. Whenever the Angel of Deliverance deals damage, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, exile target creature and opponent controls. She's a 6/6. Let's say that the controller of this angel does have Delirium, so this is now an effective triggered ability. We're rolling a Chroma the Angel of Fury for 3 red and 5. A Chroma Angel of Fury can't be countered. Flying, trample, protection from white and from blue, thank you. Okay, she is a 6/6. She does have other abilities. They don't particularly apply in this example. Seraph of the Suns, 2 white and 5. Flying, indestructible, 4/4, okay? So, here's our attacker. He's got the Angel of Deliverance and Delirium. We have a Chroma, the Angel of Fury, and Seraph of the Suns. When this Angel of Deliverance attacks, we are going to want to block. One of those choices is probably better than the other if we're not in the mood to get rid of one of our creatures. Which one do you block with?
So we're a Chroma and Seraph?
We are a Chroma and Seraph, and we are blocking the Angel of Deliverance. Which one would you choose?
We block with a Chroma, and then he'll probably exile. So.
Will he? What is the applicable abilities here? Specifically, a Chroma has protection from white.
Yeah.
Okay, whereas the Seraph has indestructible.
Yeah.
So what happens if we do block with a Chroma?
Damage will be prevented, therefore the Delirium won't trigger.
Yes! Damage will be prevented, Delirium will not trigger, and so we are free and clear. Whereas if we had chosen to defend with the Seraph of the Suns, what would have happened?
Damage would have happened, and then they could have exiled the Seraph.
Exactly. Just because the creature is indestructible doesn't mean that it's not taking damage. It is taking all the damage. The damage just isn't killing it. Okay? That is an important difference to note between protection and indestructible. Alright, go ahead, next card. Okay, this is where I pause and ask for questions before we go on to the bane of my existence, Trample. Are there any questions? Go right ahead.
So you have a card with indestructible, and you send a 4/4. It's a 3/3 with indestructible. Some card, I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
And it blocks the 4/4, lives through it. He's indestructible. Combat ends. The damage is still stuck on him.
Yes, combat damage.
Second main phase, I play a card that target creature loses all abilities.
Good question.
Will the creature die? What happens?
Alright, for those of you who may not have heard, the question is basically this. I've got a 3/3 indestructible creature that has taken 4 damage marked on it because of combat. In the second main phase, it loses all its abilities, including its indestructible. What happens? And the short answer is, it dies the next time that state-based actions are checked. Because once it's lost that indestructible, as long as that damage is still marked on it, which it will be until the end of the turn, it will go to the graveyard. Okay. I have some questions that are unrelated. Should I wait until the end? Yes, please, Kev Storm J, do wait until the end, and I will stay with you and answer as many as I can. All right, so onward. Trample. You think it's easy. It's not. Trample is the keyword ability that means that if I can't even describe it simply. All right, we'll try a metaphor. I like metaphors. I've got this gigantic Eldrazi Devastator. He cost 8 to put out. He's an 8/9 trample. He's massive. And I send him to attack my opponent. And my poor opponent only has this teeny little goblin with a single spear. As this massive Eldrazi Devastator is trampling across the land to get to my opponent to kill him, it steps right over that goblin. And of course, the goblin is there, it is holding a spear, and so yes, my Eldrazi Devastator is going to take that little bit of damage, but I mean, come on, he's huge. That damage isn't going to be enough to stop him. He's going to trample right over his blockers and manage to kick you in the face. Okay? That's what trample is. Now, if you are looking at that metaphor, it's pretty easy to see that trample is only going to work with attacks. Okay? It won't work with fight cards, because, you know, you're in this little ring and you're just punching each other. So there's no real room to trample, okay? And it won't work with blocks because it's just standing there being a wall. When it comes to trample, it will only work on attacks, okay? And the more technical way of putting it, that doesn't involve squishing innocent goblins, is that the creature with trample will assign lethal damage to the creature or creatures blocking it, and then the rest can hit the player or planeswalker it was attacking. I put a few highlights. Let's start with the one in red. Player or planeswalker. That's an important one. You'll get asked it a lot, okay? It cannot hit both a planeswalker and a player. That doesn't happen.
So you can't trample over a planeswalker?
Bingo. You cannot trample over a planeswalker. And if it helps you to remember, when you started your attacks, you had to declare whether it was attacking a planeswalker or a player. You didn't get the choice then either. Why would you get it now? So when it's aimed, it's aimed. It's only going for the planeswalker or it's going for you. It will never hit both, okay? The other one is this little can. This is one of those technical rules that is good to know. It's never come up for me. I don't know if it's come up for very many people. But technically, the extra damage that the trampling creature doesn't have to be assigned to the planeswalker or player. You can distribute it, if you want, among the blocking creatures, okay? Let's go ahead and go on to our next slide.
So do the blocking creatures have to be assigned to block that particular creature?
Yes.
So they can't be blocking a different creature and then have damage assigned to them as well?
That is correct, yeah. In case you may not have heard the question, it was, if with the extra damage, can it be assigned to creatures that aren't blocking the trample? And the answer is no. It does need to be assigned to creatures that are blocking the trampler specifically. Okay? So now the big question is, what exactly is lethal damage? And this is where Trample's little metaphor about squishing innocent goblin kind of falls apart. These are the rules that you're going to want to have memorized as a judge, okay? When you are trying to decide what lethal damage is, you're going to take two things into account. The first one is damage that is already marked on a creature, okay? So, for our example, my Devastator again, trample 8/9. My opponent is rolling the Dakara Scavenger, black and 5, creature crocodile. It has an enters the battlefield ability. I'm not worried about it. Its power and toughness is 4/6, okay? So I have attacked with my 8/9 trample. He has blocked with his 4/6. Dakara Scavenger, and then I play Shock for 1 red, which deals 2 damage to target creature, targeting his Scavenger, okay? So, what happens during the combat damage step? How much damage does the Eldrazi Devastator have to assign to it before it can trample through? There we go. I think he's already answering it. Anyone care to voice?
So the shock resolves before the combat damage?
Yep, it certainly does. The shock will resolve during the declare blocker step. So it is in fact marked onto the creature before we go into combat damage step.
So 4.
That's right. 4 is the answer. So we've got the 6, we've marked 2, that means there's only 4 left, And so we assign 4 from the 8, and the remaining 4 can move through. Next slide. The second thing that you're going to get, whoop, there we go. The second thing that you're going to consider when deciding what is lethal damage is damage that is possible from other creatures. Okay, so this specifically refers to the damage that can be dealt by other creatures to that creature in this combat, but that's really nitpicky. Here's the situation where it applies. It makes things clearer. I've got an Eldrazi Devastator. You know him. 8/9, trample. I also have a Naga Vitalist, okay? She's only a 1/2. She has an activated ability. I'm not particularly worried about that right now. What I am worried about is this True Heart Duelist over here that my opponent has. Whoop, back one. There we go. White and 1. The True Heart Duelist can block an additional creature each combat. He's only a 2/2, but he's a really brave 2/2. So when I attack with both my Devastator and my Naga Vitalist, he's going to try to defend both of them, okay? So, if this is the situation, how much damage does the Devastator need to assign to the True Heart Duelist to make it lethal before he tramples through? Go right ahead.
2.
2? Why 2?
Because damage is all dealt.
Ah, this
at
is the
same
tricky part.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Damage is all dealt at the same time, and well, actually,
Yep.
I'm gonna retract my answer to this question because I think it has a little deeper meaning than that.
Yeah, I'm totally being mean and cheating here, okay? The answer isn't 2, and the answer isn't 2 because of the rules of trample. The rules of trample say that when you're assigning lethal, you should consider damage already marked and damage that could be done by other creatures. The Naga's still there. She can do other damage, and she will be doing it to the True Heart Duelist. So if we take her into account, now how much do I do?
1.
Only 1, that's right. The Naga Vitalist can do 1, and then the Devastator is going to do the other 1 that is necessary to be lethal damage, and then the other 7 get to go through and turn my opponent's face into a waffle. Yes?
So I have it's kind of related, but I have a really niche scenario that, so you have this enchantment in play or creature in play or whatever. It says whenever you deal damage to a player, you take that much damage.
Yes.
I can't remember what the card is called. I thought there was a card that did that. Anyways, so you're trying to kill your opponent without killing yourself, and so they have some amount of life, and you want to trample over for 6 because that won't kill you, and they have a grizzly bear that can block your Eldrazi Devastator.
Yep. Keep going.
You have some enchantment that says, or you lured, where the grizzly bear must block the Eldrazi Devastator this turn. Right? You swing with the Eldrazi Devastator. They proceed to block with the grizzly bear, and then they shock it before damage happens.
Shock the grizzly bear?
They shock their own grizzly bear before damage happens, removing the grizzly bear from combat. So the Eldrazi Devastator has nothing to deal its damage to. Does the damage still have to be trampled over to the player, or can it all be assigned to the grizzly bear who's no longer there?
I actually have the answer for you, and we will be covering that again too, okay? But the answer is found in 702.19c. Wow. If an attacking creature with trample is blocked, but there are no creatures blocking it when damage is assigned, all its damage is assigned to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. Because it doesn't say may, it's all going to his face and your face, and that's the game. All right, so yes.
Sorry to pause you. We're going a little bit long on time. Just keep that in mind.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
We are almost done. I am sorry.
Sweet.
Okay, so yeah, we are going long on time. For those of you that need to ditch, please feel free. I will not be insulted in the slightest. If you want to hang around, I will be here until I'm done, which hopefully won't be too much longer. Okay, next slide. Oh, there we go. What if the duelist had protection from green? Ha! We will actually cover that in just a second, Kev Storm J, I promise. Okay? So, this one was meant to be a test, but in order to save on time, I'm going to go ahead and shorthand all of it. Okay? We have the Devastator, we have Shock, we have the Blighted Bat. The Blighted Bat and the Devastator are attacking, and the opponent has Watcher in the Web, which is going to block both of them. I shock them before damage occurs, Now both instances are going to be taken into account when deciding what is lethal. So here we go. I got a 2-5, and because of the shock, I have 2 damage marked on it. It's down to 3. The Blighted Bat can do 2 damage, so I take care of those 2, and we're down to 1, which means that the Eldrazi Devastator only has to apply 1 damage. Now it's considered lethal, and the rest can trample through. Next slide. Okay. But you do not take into account any abilities or effects that change the amount of combat damage that is actually dealt. That's a big one, okay? And here we have our old friend Insult to Injury. Damage can't be prevented. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double that damage instead. I've got a Devastator going up against a Grizzly Bear. I am going to have to assign 2 damage to it before trampling through with the other 6. Because we aren't going to take into account the effects that are going to change the amount of damage. But what happens when the damage is actually dealt? I will deal 4 damage to the Grizzly Bear. I will deal 12 damage to the person. Still not a bad gig. Next slide. Okay, another example of where this comes into effect, we've got the Gold Knight Castigator. 2 red and 2, flying haste. If a source would deal damage to you, it deals double that damage to you instead. If a source would deal damage to the Gold Knight Castigator, it deals double that damage to the Gold Knight Castigator instead. It's a 4/9. If I throw my Eldrazi Devastator at it, I have to assign all 8 damage to it because I can't take into account any of the effects that are going to change the damage. And so when I hit, I'll do a whopping 16 damage to it, but I won't be able to get through to you as a player. Let's see. This is the forefront Spark Troopers. Okay, I'll come back to this in a second. Next slide. Alright, but what if I had a Bow of Nylea? Now attacking creatures I control have Death Touch. So if my Trample Death Touch 8/9 is going up against the Gold Knight Castigator, I only have to assign 1 damage. Because remember, Death Touch rules says that any amount of damage above 0 is lethal. And so Death Touch and Trample is awesome together. I assign that 1 damage to the Castigator, the remaining 7 go through, and because of her abilities, I'm doing a whopping 14 damage to my opponent. Alright, next. Okay, now this rule is regarding to it addresses KevJ's question about what if damage is prevented or redirected. That rule is, those 2 things are covered under the same rule, and basically what it says is that if damage is prevented or redirected, the rest of it will still go through. So I've got my Devastator, my opponent's got the Grizzly Bears, but he's also got Captain's Maneuver. White, red, and X, the next X damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn is dealt to another target creature or player instead. He decides he's going to protect his Grizzly Bears. I guess they're really important to him. He's going to redirect that damage back to the Devastator. So what does the Devastator do? Well, it's got to assign the 2 damage to the Grizzly Bears. The remaining 6 go on, and just because this damage is prevented does not change the fact that the 6 will go on to the player. Okay. Okay, let's see. Lethal damage and the rest tramples over. Okay, next.
Yes, you do assign lethal damage and the rest tramples over.
Alright, thank you. So yeah, we up here for this question, the answer is yes. We can go into more details in a minute if you want. This also applies with protection. This time I've got a green creature with trample. It's the Aetherwind Basker, for those that can't see it. And then I've got the Woodlock Crawler, a blue-black that has protection from green. Okay? My protected from green is a 2/1. The Basker is a 7/7. I have to assign the 1 to its lethal. It will be prevented because of its protection, but the remaining 6 will go through. Next. Oh, I'm almost done. Alright, this one addresses the rule that I actually read out loud to you before. If I have a defender, such as the Consul Skygate, which is only a 0/4, I can remove it with Electrify before the damage is dealt. All of the damage that the Basker could do will go to the person. Sorry, I'm rushing this now, I know. Next. And this also applies when we take into consideration things like double strike. Okay? So what I've got is my 7/7 Basker. It has trample. They've declared the defender with reach 0/4, the Consulate Skygate, to be the defender. And then I cast Double Cleave. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So now I've got my 7/7 trample double strike going up against the Consulate Skygate. Walking it through the way we explained it, I get that first combat damage step that is created because of double strike, and it will deal 4 damage to the Skygate. The remaining 3 goes to the person. Okay, that's dealt with and done with. Skygate goes to the graveyard. It is now the second combat damage step. There are no blockers. Well, this time all of its damage gets assigned to the player. All right, whew. For those that you are ready to be done, this is the end of my official lecture. If you guys have any questions, I will be happy to stay and answer them.
Great job, Kai.
I am. Well, a little long, but yeah.
That was great. You went over a lot of combat stuff, it sounds like, too.
I know. I
Which kind of
cannot.
had to be happen when you're going over evergreen
First strike
abilities.
and double strike. We might want to read.
We will. We'll go back over
There you go.
combat.
Oh, there we go.
Later on.
Are planeswalkers considered legendary for the sake of lay bare the heart?
That's the Thoughtseize for legendary creatures.
Yeah. Could I get the, give me a
For
second.
non-legendary.
So,
It's,
because the legendary rule applies to planeswalkers, is that why he's asking that?
technically the planeswalker uniqueness rule applies to planeswalkers.
Lay bare the hearts is
It's just
Here we
1
go.
in
It says-
black.
You choose a
non-legendary.
non-legendary non-land
There
card
it
from
is.
it. That player discards that card. I hate to admit it, but I don't actually have a lot of planeswalkers. But if my memory serves me, legendary is not found on the type line. And if legendary is not
Correct.
found on the type line, then it is not considered a legendary card, and it would fall to lay bare the heart.
So something like Inventor's Fair's a land, so it doesn't matter. Umazawa's Jite is a legendary artifact. You
Couldn't pick.
couldn't pick Umazawa's Jite
Or
because
more like one of the Dragon Lords.
Yes,
Yeah.
Dragon Lord Ojutai.
Yeah, that's a newer one. Yeah, Dragon Lord Urgitai is a legendary creature, so you couldn't take that card from their hand. Or what's the legendary that's being played right now? Is there? Anyway, that's fine.
Uma?
Yeah, so the basic rule is that if it says legendary
Oh,
on that type line on the card, then it is legendary and it cannot be targeted by lay
Oh,
But yeah, but
bare the heart.
as far as
Sorry, it cannot be
planeswalkers go,
chosen by lay
All the
bare the heart.
gods.
it's not the legendary rule that causes planeswalkers to go to the graveyard.
It is the planeswalker uniqueness
Yes,
rule, and
weird,
that's its
'cause-
official name.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Again, them being hyper technical. Any other questions?
Aetherworks Marvel. That's the
That's
other
the
legendary.
one.
That's the one. Yeah,
Yep.
That's the one you want.
Yeah.
Get it out of there.
A
You
little
can't, though.
overtime? Almost an hour overtime? It's a little overtime. Okay.
It's like 40, 50 minutes.
Must
Fine.
talk faster!
No, it's fine. There's a lot of information to go.
It's
Oh, well.
true. What zone does a spell exist in when it is on the stack? It's easy. Stack is a zone. The zones, if you've forgotten that from our
Previous
lecture, is the ante, hand, battlefield, stack, library, graveyard, exile, commander zone. Since the stack is a zone, when it is on the stack, it is in the stack zone.
Patrick, big thanks for you for typing. It looks like.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick.
We got a shout out to Patrick, who is actually very fast at typing. Impressive.
All right, I think that's good.
All right.
Question was.
Again, a shout out to Paragon Games for letting us use the space and broadcasting this. Next week we'll be talking about copy effects and anything else we want to talk about?
Before we go, any feedback on the stream itself? We started something new with Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. I don't know if they already did this because I was out of the room. I'm curious what platform you guys are using to watch. Those are watching Twitch or
So-
Facebook. Do you mind just putting in the Twitch chat real quick, or the
Seen
chat
some
really
of
quick?
all three.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It-
Does it?
see the Facebook
Oh, it
there?
indicates it right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't listen to me. I'm bad.
So you can tell where they're coming from.
On Twitch. Okay, cool.
But there was a Facebook
Mostly
comment
Twitch.
earlier.
Awesome.
Interesting. Awesome.
I was curious. That was more my question.
Sorry. Nice.
Apple users.
Show offs, all of them, right?
That's great. Cool. Well, welcome. And yeah, thank you to Paragon City for hosting us, giving us the equipment to do this. It's very generous of them. Check out their website, ParagonCityGames.com.
Check out their store if you're in the
Yeah.
area.
I think Patrick's gonna take a few minutes right after done with the stream. You guys don't mind hanging out. He's gonna talk about some events and stuff. before we end the stream. So check that out before he goes.
And Kai said we would be able to post the slideshow for you guys, so.
Okay, we will. Yeah, definitely get that.
Yep.
Somehow, magically.
Yeah, we'll post
Eventually.
it on the Facebook page, the Utah MTG Judge Classes. We can link that in the chat before I go.
Were we able to answer that question last week about the treacherous link and the pariah?
Do you want to go over it?
Yeah, sure. So last week we had a question about treacherous link and pariah. One said whenever players dealt damage, the creatures dealt that much damage instead. The other said whenever the creatures dealt damage, the players dealt that much damage instead.
So I lightning bolt your creature.
You lightning bolt my creature. We have 2 replacement effects. You will only apply each replacement effect once. So the treacherous link replacement effect of the damage will be dealt to me instead will apply first. And then the pariah replacement effect of the damage that's dealt to me would be dealt to the creature. It's applied second, so the damage would be dealt to the creature.
So the key to that was, I think what he was getting at is whether or not it goes infinite, probably.
It does.
It's caught in its own cycle.
Yeah, it does not go infinite because each replacement effect will only be applied once.
Which will go in more depth than replacement effects in the future.
Yes, we will talk more about replacement effects soon.
Sweet. Cool. I think we're done. Thank you, stream. Looks like chat's winding down.
Okay.
Patrick, if you want to take us down, we are good. Thanks for showing up. Turn this off so we don't die.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the stream. My name is Patrick. I'm an employee here at Paragon City Games. I was running the chat for the broadcaster tonight. Like they said, we've got a couple events going on this week. Starting at F&M, we've got Modern starting at 6 o'clock. We'll do a draft starting at 6:30. Standard and Legacy, we'll try and get started around 7. And then this weekend, we also have Game Day. So at midnight, we're going to be doing a Game Day event. These Game Day events are going to be treated like PPTQs or high-level Magic events. We're going to be charging $20 for the event once, so that we can just fill you guys with a ton of prizes. That's kind of how we do things here at Paragon City Games. We love to, get as much prizes out to the players as possible. So we'll be doing a midnight Game Day, and then on Saturday at 2 o'clock we'll also have another $20 Game Day event. So bring your best standard deck, come out and play with us this weekend. Thanks for tuning again into the weekly Judge class. I know we're working through some technical issues, but we will get there. We're having a good time with this. So thanks everyone. Love to see a class on Magic jargon. We might cover that sometime. We'll see. It might be included in a lesson with shortcuts that Magic players use as far as being able to judge better and understand what the players are wanting to convey. So Magic jargon, yeah, that could be seen. But again, thanks everybody for tuning in the stream. You guys have a great night.